Good evening and welcome to our video podcast, Into the Darkness. Last week we were unable to discuss episode 4 of Lovecraft Country because my power went out. So this week we will be discussing both 4 and 5. We wanted so much to like this series and we were so impressed with the first episode. But oh, how the tide can turn. We all watched and were ready to discuss. Remember, there will be major spoilers in this episode. I should also say, please feel free to comment. We love chatting with you in the days that follow the episode. Tonight's participants will be Josh Harwood, John Dos Passos, Stuart Lipley, John Hook, Michael Swan, and Wayne Worthy, and Morgan Llewellyn. So, I'll let you guys start because...
I forgot this was a conversation about episodes 4 and 5.
Yeah. 4 started
what
okay.
happened in 4?
So 4 was the Indiana Jones episode.
Oh, right.
It is that forgettable, John.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Stuart.
At the very beginning, or very close to the beginning of episode 4, you have Montrose looking very distraught in his apartment, and he sets fire and tosses away the order of the
the book.
Yeah,
burns it up.
The handbook,
it was another
bylaws
element of clearly showing he wants to destroy all steps to go down this path for Atticus to, I believe, keep Atticus from moving down this path to his supposed potential destiny. Right. As what happened later at the end of the episode, Montrose does something even more horrendous in the slitting of the throat.
Yeah, I am not a fan of Montrose. I'm not a fan of just the way they're developing the character. I'm not a fan of the fact that they're using him to be this destroyer of evidence and stuff. I mean, you know, Atticus has a hard enough road to walk as it is without his own dad, you know, cutting him off at the heels. And it irks me, you know.
Well, he never got along. I mean, the two of them have been at odds from day one, it sounds like. Episode 1, there's a lot of mention of how, you know, they got in fights and Atticus was beaten as a child. So, I mean, I think it sort of sets the foundation that Montrose and Atticus are, you know, they don't have a healthy relationship.
But
I'm
Montrose
upset.
Montrose never had a healthy relationship with his father, apparently. So it's spreading from generation to generation there.
I'm sad that they've left us with Montrose and they took away Uncle George, because I loved Uncle George.
Yeah,
he was
awesome.
a character I cared about.
Well, I mean, it shouldn't be. It's, at least for me, having a character you don't like isn't necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's good to have a character you don't like, but I'm just interested to see where they're going to take Montrose.
And so I should say I have read the book. And I understand that HBO is taking their own stand and they're creating and developing these characters independently and differently than they were developed in the book. But I honestly take a couple of cues and use the book as a resource for some of this character development. You know, Montrose was a character who disliked every choice that his son made, even as a young person. Disliked the literature that he was getting into, but instead of book burning or banning or hitting, you know, anything like that, Montrose in the book tries to be more intellectual about it and says, oh, you like this H.P. Lovecraft author. Have you seen this poem that he wrote about your own people? Right. And he was trying to, use knowledge and educate Atticus on like, hey, don't look at this author, or in this one case, I'm just using Lovecraft as one example. Right. But don't try and view this author through rose-colored glasses and put him on this pedestal until you've had an opportunity to see his entire breadth of work, right? He didn't like you. He wouldn't have lunch with you. He wouldn't shake your hand because of the color of your skin. Right. So think about that before you start idolizing some of these stories. And that was at least in the book where Montrose, of course, Montrose doesn't get all that much spotlight in the book, but in the book where at least, where you do learn about him, he's more trying to come at it from
a respectful
knowledge.
Position. Yeah.
A respectful position. And I don't know.
And they could have
bully.
They could have done it with this. They could have had, and they brought that up in the very first episode, what you just said. And I was expecting,
you don't see that reflected in the character that he is now.
I was expecting him to be a much more intelligent individual, and he could have been like, look, I know something about magic, and it's bad shit. You don't want to get involved in it. And he could keep trying to hammer that home, but not without, when he did that, I don't like him. I mean,
I think there's a couple of reasons why he did that. One reason, if he's telling Atticus, don't get into this magic, it's dangerous stuff, I know better, then he'll have to answer those questions. Well, how do you know? What do you know? And he doesn't want to get into that.
Right, but choosing to murder somebody instead is...
That's the other thing I wanted to say. Now
it makes him detestable.
It does. But now, let me ask you this question. How many stories have you read before where you have a character who will take out these type of people hiding this evidence, but doing it because they don't want anything more dangerous to happen?
I don't know. I can't really think of one.
Well, I mean,
it doesn't make it right.
I'm not saying he's right. I'm not arguing about that, but I'm just saying that his reasoning for doing this is to hide this dangerous knowledge of magic.
Yeah.
But it just seems silly to risk your life and risk your son's life and your friend's life, and then get this book and then just destroy it. Why even go? Like, why not just sabotage the entire plan and fuck up in the museum and don't even make it to the vault? Like, why even go? Why risk your life and get the book and then kill the lady you found and destroy the book? So why was the point of going through all that? Why would you do that?
Well, so I mean, so if we're gonna look at it,
I was gonna say I'll tell you why, because HBO needed it to happen that way in order to keep the participants hooked. Think about it this way: if they would have kept the book, had they kept the woman alive, a lot of questions would have been answered this early in the season.
And if you're looking at it from look at it from the character's perspective, why go through all that? Well, they know that the lodges want this knowledge, and so he gets to it first. He's not just getting rid of it to stop Atticus. The idea would be to get rid of it so that none of these people can use it.
That's true.
None of the people from Artem, none of the people from the Chicago Lodge, just get it off the.
If I remember,
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
He's playing the role of I know better than everyone around me, and I know what I'm doing, and I don't know. I just find that as in a position. It's like a Call of Cthulhu role-playing game player who's already read the scenario, but pretending like he has.
There's an essence in the way he portrays, at least in episode 4. He seemed almost shell-shocked. I mean, when you see him do so many things, he has that haunted look, like he's staring out into space and or soul searching within, and then he does something horrendous. I mean, he's going through serious, mental anguish as he goes forward.
Also, we don't know what happened to him when he was captured.
That's true. We don't.
Yeah.
But considering all of that, didn't you think it was kind of downplayed the beginning of the fact we see the woman murdered in the previous episode, and then we come back and it's like nobody finds the blood or the body, or nobody freaks out about the girl's dead in the basement?
Well, Atticus,
nobody's just going and trying to find her.
Yeah. Well, Atticus picked up on it right away. That's why he proceeded with the ass whooping.
Except that he made it look like the ass whooping was he just did that because he figured Montrose burnt the scrolls.
So
no, because he told her later on that she didn't just go away.
Yeah, it seemed
later
underplayed though.
So let's, if I may, let's not dive too deep into episode 5 yet. Let's fit because 4 still has more interesting things. Like I think several of us have read the book. Now, I for one found the traps and stuff to get to the pages. I thought the HBO version was far more entertaining than the trap that was described in the book. And the trap in the book was cool, but I thought the Indiana Jones thing was way more entertaining.
Yeah.
Except that they took it right out of Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
pretty solid on
but
that.
But there's a lot of nods to different type of literature as well. So
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, with the the kids reading The Journey to the Center of the Earth the whole time, in the library scene where they set it all up, because I mean, the thing with the medium, there are certain aspects of the novel that just don't translate well to a TV show, as you said. Watching the Freemasons kind of go and do their thing to try to recover it in the novel, it's a lot of them debating how to do it, in the book, of them trying to solve the problem. It's not so action-packed as it is.
True.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, weren't they supposed to trade that book for another book that belonged to them?
Yes. So
so
I've been trying to avoid
pull a
dude,
pull
some
a
of us
switch.
haven't read the story.
Sorry.
So they have the one of the things that their family has is this ledger. Their ancestor, who was a freed slave, she recorded all of her hours and was like, "This is how much I should have been paid."
Yeah, reparations.
And so every year they meet up to discuss the interest that has built on this book. It's very important to them, and Braithwaite is like, "Hey, I have your book. I need you to go get this other book, and then we can swap." If I recall,
HBO is changing so many key critical points. It staggers me to the point where I'm like, are they even attempting to get to the same endpoint that is in the book? I mean, I guess maybe they're not, and
they're going to want multiple series. Yeah,
and that's what I was thinking too. I mean, honestly, you could, in my opinion, you could have made a truly faithful adaptation of the book into a series and done 3 full seasons of it before you ran out of material from the book.
Right.
And then by the time you get to season 4, either you would have reached an agreement with the original author, or the staff writers would have gotten their sea legs and could have continued on with the original stories. But I don't know, they're making so many radical changes, like collection of the pages from the Book of Names in order to trade it for the ledger, which didn't happen. And because Braithwaite, spoilers for the book, Braithwaite gets those pages, right? I mean, he got them.
It's a whole setup. You get the.
It was a whole setup, and now not only did Braithwaite not get the pages, but now Atticus didn't get the pages either, because Montrose destroyed them, as far as we know, Because
Right.
I guess technically we haven't seen what happened to the pages.
Well,
Right.
What's her name? Took pictures of him. That's what he was asking.
Right.
Yes,
But
Letitia
those
did
are
take
limited.
pictures, which was awesome.
Yes. Limited photos, though. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the end of episode 5, to the viewer, it made no sense at all that he translates something that says die and then calls somebody on the phone and how did you know? And it's like, what the hell?
But she's a reoccurring character.
Yeah,
She's
but
the
we
one
don't
who-
know anything about.
Yeah, that's going to be revealed eventually.
We don't even know what die means in this case, other than die.
Well, and she's not even a character in the book, so I
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, I
who's
saw
this
a
person?
preview for episode 6 because now
Right.
TV likes to fuck me over. So it gets explained in the next episode by the looks of it. So
I mean, I don't know a whole lot about the feel, but the idea of them trying to figure out, well, this character is the letter A and this character is the letter B. I'm like, what? I don't like.
But then he
that
did
just
say
didn't
something.
make sense to me.
He said something like it's more on the lines of like Chinese kanji.
He called them Chinese hieroglyphics, which I thought that was a little interesting, which they technically are. Like if you go to the Wikipedia page for hieroglyphics, but all of them, like, Egyptian hieroglyphics, the Chinese is called characters. They're the one that's called different. So I thought that was a little interesting. I don't know if that was a line thing or what, but.
And honestly, unless you actually know what they mean, there's no way in the universe that you can work out what they mean. Unless you have a Rosetta Stone of some sort.
Because that's exactly like you said, Wayne. Because he starts making like, oh, this is A, and that's this letter, and I have my initials, and I have the word protection, and then she's like, oh, so maybe you have this many out of 26, and he's like, oh, actually, this one looks more like Chinese characters or hieroglyphics, and then proceeds to decode die, and it's like, wait, I thought you said that's not how it works. D-I-E.
Yeah.
Atticus does mention, I forgot whether it's before the word die comes out or after, but he mentions something to the effect of this, we are assuming that this is the 26-letter alphabet for an English translation, which is important to understand. I mean, it may not be.
Yeah. The English alphabet hasn't always been a 26-letter alphabet.
Yeah,
it's just 26 right now.
Well, I think the problem there is that they're treating it as a cipher rather than a language.
Mm-hmm.
That's lazy.
And an English cipher.
It is. It's lazy. It's totally lazy.
An English cipher, and since English only goes back about 500 or 600 years before it becomes archaic, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. This would be a language that that is probably more akin to like Chinese characters, where he had that ring and he just assumed that those or maybe someone told him that those were his initials, but that could just as easily have been 3 characters that when translated means last son of Adam or something. It doesn't have to be his ASF, right? I mean, so it just doesn't.
I always thought that the only movie they ever approached the concept of translation really well was the movie no, well that was a different thing, but yes, that was nice. No, Prometheus, when you've got the robot guy David, and it shows him before he's woken anybody up, and he's studying Proto-European, and they're trying to trace it back to the roots of the language, and there's actually a way to do that. We don't know if it's perfectly accurate, but he's like, I think I could communicate with them, because he's almost back to the caveman language at that point.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a stretch to have a translation where it translates the word protection, and the word protection has the same syllabic structure and number of letters and directly translates to the word protection. Whereas it could be 2 symbols together could mean that.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, that's. I mean, obviously that's simplifying everything for the benefit of the viewer,
right?
I think, and it's
now
irksome but understandable.
Did you guys not realize, but did you guys recognize that symbol on the little disc thing that what's the name? Yeah,
right.
So yeah, this is going to be interesting, and the whole Ruby thing. I always wanted to talk about that because that was like one of my favorite parts in the book. So what did you guys?
Okay, so that's in the book.
Can we go to episode back before we?
Yeah, we want to finish up. Yeah. Is there anything else we want to? Yeah.
I have just one thing. It's mainly for the book readers. For episode 4, I was a little bit annoyed that Abdullah and Joe weren't in the episode or even mentioned, or because I know they're minor characters, but they were kind of integral to that part.
They're minor characters, but they're minor characters that show up again. Exactly. Everybody that shows up in the book is important later. And so when they killed George in the show, I was like,
yep,
exactly.
What is even happening now? Like everybody.
And why would you kill somebody that you intrinsically like in the show so early in the show?
Yeah,
because they couldn't afford him.
Do it later when we've just completely fallen in love with him, and then it's horrible when he gets killed or something like that.
See, I think that's probably why they didn't introduce Abdullah and Joe, because they were with George. Well, George
they were Masons. They were Masons, and George was a Mason. Now with George dead, I don't think any of the other characters. I don't think Atticus is a member of the Masons, and I don't think Montrose is. So nobody's a current member of the Masons to bring him in.
Nope.
Now, was I reading too much into episode 4 and just a throwaway line, or when they're down in the vaults and Letitia recognizes the corpse that Bob's passed by its t-shirt as one of the people who'd attacked her home in episode 3, then surely the sort of subtext there is that elevator that they go up in leads back up into her Winthrop's house in Chicago.
Yeah.
And that's how they got back to Chicago.
The distance, so the distance underground is magical.
Like a spatial warping.
When they walked across when they walked across that gap, I imagine that was a gap in space time.
Sure.
That they had crossed.
One of those.
And then later and I can't pronounce her name, but when the mom and the daughter are in the car, they're in Woody, and then they make that comment, how did they get back to Chicago without us? Right. And so, they went through the magical.
I kept thinking of the ghouls that they can travel in tunnels underground.
There's one thing, Tom, that we were talking about, I think last week, that was confirmed in the 5th episode. So remember when they were in a vault and the guy from the bar, who's kind of antagonizing Atticus, said something about his father,
right?
And the guy in the bar.
Yes, we did confirm that.
Yeah.
But before we talk about that, let's talk about the thing I was starting to get into. And that was a lot of us had kind of figured out in episode 4, we highly suspected that Christina and William were in fact the same person, because we had never seen them on the screen at the same time. And then in this one, of course, we got the disgusting, gross reveal of how the transformation takes place, which causes a continuity error because Christina walked around a corner and came back instantly as William. So
in different clothing, not covered. Yeah, the HBO. Yeah, the HBO is setting up. Well, they're setting up rules and they're breaking their own rules, and that is so annoying. If you set up certain rules and you say this is true for this universe, you have to stay with it true, or else if you break those rules, the audience isn't going to care and put any effort into it. So, you'll notice in the episode they only ever show the transition from I'm in a disguise and I'm transitioning back into my real form. They never show I go from my real form into the disguise.
Right.
And so are we supposed to believe that going from disguise into real form is this horrific, bloody, flesh tearing, I'm crawling out of my skin event, but going from normal person into a disguise is just, just like a special effect? With no blood and no tearing and anything like that? Because when Ruby wakes up in the bed as a white woman, the sheets are clean.
Right.
If William had to clean her and then put her in the bed, she would have woken up through that,
Probably, yeah.
So I'm thinking like when she takes the elixir, it forms a specific type of body around or shell around your actual form. Yeah, especially if you're chasing shapes, male to female and large to small. There might be a bit of discomfort, but like I don't think it's going to be bloody. I think
it still seems like
but when it's time for you to, yeah.
Once you know that it's gross and bloody, it's like the bathtub's right over there. Get in there before you change back into.
So this leads to, so like, where did the body of that person go in episode 4? These people, she's just leaving like these empty shells of like
goo
and like blood and human skin all over the place, and elevators, and just.
And I thought at first
making the news.
I thought at first maybe those things disintegrated into nothing, except that William put plastic down on the carpet because he didn't want all the goo going all over on the carpet. So apparently it doesn't just disappear.
No, but that scene where Ruby quits her job.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one has a problem too. When Christina tells her, I didn't give you this stuff so that you could run around like a white woman. I gave it to you so that you could get away with anything that you wanted to get away with. So why, when she does what she does to the manager, does she show him that she's in fact a black woman that he's in fact seen before? It's like
she addresses that with a line, which is a funny callback to something that the character said. However, you're right that it goes exactly against what Christina said, because now he knows. Now this guy knows that he did that, and I guess I best not mess with the magic lady. I best not go to the police or anything.
Honestly, that whole scene was.
What was he going to say? Like, this white woman came in and a black woman burst out of her and did this to me.
I could just say a black woman did it to me.
I was to say, he could say a black woman stabbed me in the butt with a stiletto, and then he could tell them who it was if he remembers who she was from when she applied.
Honestly, I thought that scene was going to go completely differently.
It didn't apply.
Did she not?
No, because she walked in. All the other
she lady. Wanted to. She didn't actually.
And then she turned around. Yeah, she turned around and left.
I thought that she was just going to strip him and embarrass him by letting the management or somebody come in on him. What she did to him, I don't think he deserved for. Jesus Christ.
Whether.
Well, he was a potential rapist.
Exactly.
Yeah. So was almost every man in the 1950s, if you go by Mad Men or anything.
I mean, if they got the same treatment, maybe they would have changed their way.
Yeah.
He didn't rape her, and she violated him in a ridiculously horrific manner.
It's also implied that he's been doing that to other workers as well.
That was
with me. It was just like they just couldn't. It was like, how do we make this scary or like horrifying or something? And so they're just like, the metamorphosis is just gore at the party that she's supposed to go spying on. It's really kind of boring, but she finds the horrific prisoner in the closet and he's just constantly spewing up blood. You're like, oh, that's so gross. And then, her revenge is just, incredibly violent. And then there's more people, they're just like, let's just throw blood at it. We don't know how to
And I do want to get into the party, but there's one thing I did want to say about Ruby when she was finally taking her white skin for a test drive, and she had that day. And even William noted, he goes, "Hey, I saw all the money on the counter. You didn't want the money?" And she's like, "I didn't need it. I was able to do everything I wanted just by paying for it with the currency I had, my whiteness." That entire scene I found farcical because watching it, I instantly was taken back to Saturday Night Live.
Eddie Murphy.
And Eddie Murphy in whiteface. And people are like, "Oh, no one's around. Go ahead and take that. You don't have
to pay for it." Yeah.
And I'm just like, I've seen this scene on SNL.
Yep,
you know?
I thought the exact same thing.
Now, going back.
Also, another.
Go ahead.
Like, I'm just going to get this out right now. And this is one of the things that almost made me quit this show, is this modern music constantly finding its way.
I was just about to bring it up, yeah.
And
sometimes it works, and I think it's pretty cool. But man, when it flops hard.
Yeah,
real bad.
They had a Cardi B song twice in this episode, and I'm like, why?
Why?
It's like, it's this. You don't trust the music of the time? Come on. Like, that music was great.
There are so many, I'm imagining that there are so many black artists that they could be featuring from the 40s and 50s that they're not getting the airtime, you know?
Yeah.
And there's been a couple times that they have, and they were really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that in the first episode, that one scene where Ruby is singing, and then you have the other band that comes on after that. Like, why not have more of that? You know, there's plenty of people out here who play live jazz and you know, that sort of music.
Yeah.
Get that. Let them do covers for other songs.
I suppose from the point of view of the sound design, though, I mean, one of the practicalities is that they're trying to appeal to a modern audience, and that perhaps, you know, for a lot of modern people in the modern audiences, music from the 40s and 50s is quite niche, and it's quite sort of other. I mean, not for me personally. I used to DJ playing stuff like that, but I like it. But
I mean, you're talking HBO budgets here, so they could hire a modern artist to do a maybe an upbeat and or maybe even a rapped version of a 40s or 50s song, right? I mean, you could do a cover, or you could start with you know, a sampling of the original and then morph it. In fact, something like that would have been awesome for Ruby's transformations, to go with a song that was in its original format and then morphs into a modern artist's, you know, take on that exact same song. I mean,
I think you could have done postmodern jukebox, you know, where they take modern songs and they play them as if they were in the 50s or the 40s or the 30s.
I think that, I mean, there's certainly, I can think of more egregious examples of the same thing being tried. In particular, I'm thinking of The Great Gatsby, in which the soundtrack was just invasive. You know, it was just awful.
For me, I'm sorry.
So I mean, in this case, I think it works more often than not. But yeah, there are a couple of examples where it does jar a little bit.
Yeah, for me, it's compared to, like, if we were playing Call of Cthulhu in the 20s, and then one of the characters had a cell phone. Like, it's just that jarring for me. So like, anytime, so like, I wouldn't want any sort of modern mix to it, but I wouldn't mind having a modern artist do a cover for that, and maybe even jazz it up a little bit, but like, not necessarily turn it into a hip hop song, because that time period is totally different, you know.
Yeah.
So something
not that
that
I have
Wayne,
anything against not that I have anything against hip hop. I want the audience to know, like, all types of music, but I feel like it should just be period. This is a period piece.
so something that Wayne
yeah.
Wayne brought up a few minutes ago, that we had talked about earlier. Wayne had picked up in the fourth episode the concept that Montrose might be gay, and I didn't pick it up at first, but obviously it was confirmed in this episode. We had the Sammy character show up in the very first episode, getting a blowjob in a back corner, which I found very unrealistic, considering in the 50s. I mean, he might be gay and he might be getting, on the down low, getting some on the side, but he wouldn't be doing it in public, right where somebody might catch him. But then when we confirmed it in this episode, I thought it was horrible. I thought, first of all, I didn't like Montrose in the first place, but the fact is, you don't, only in fantasies do you walk in and just ram it home all in one movement without practically killing your partner. It didn't show love. It didn't show tenderness or affection. It was gross. It was really gross.
I did not get the sense that those two had a relationship. I got the sense it came across as rape to me.
Yeah.
And it made me hate Montrose even more because he was the offender, If it just he was being in the act of doing the rape.
I talked it over with David earlier, and he said it was like 1970s homosexuality in film, where the homosexual has to be the bad guy. They have to be some psychopathic weirdo that murders people and deserves to die at some point. And everybody cheers when they get killed because they're weird, freaky perverts. And I was like, why depict it that way? If they'd have, Josh pointed out something earlier too. If they'd have taken that scene and made it a little more tender and put it before he murdered the woman, we might have actually felt sorry for him, that he's had to grow up with that difficulty of living in that society and being gay. We would have liked him a little bit more, and then he would have murdered the woman, and we would have been like, oh, that's horrible.
Do you not think that dramatically it's a setup for the character's redemption to an extent in the club scene, where he's finally, he's making a public display of affection towards
Well, I think
Sammy.
they were trying to give us that, but it was too late. I already hated him.
And I mean,
Yeah.
also, I mean, stylistically, you've got to look at the whole episode, and there's definitely a sort of stylistic parallel between Montrose essentially sort of coming out in a public environment in that way, and what's happening with Ruby coming out of this other skin. So
Yeah,
I think that's quite intentional. I mean, the thing that irks me about Montrose as a character is that they've adapted the character and obviously revised what they were doing while they were making it. So you've got there's a stylistic element whereby he has all these trappings of an autodidact. He's got this massive record collection. He reads classic books. That's very much the character from the book. Then you have this more brutal character in the TV show. So he's this brutal character in the TV show, but he's still got all the records and the books of the character from the book.
Yeah.
And that kind of that jars with the way that they've reinterpreted the character in the TV show, and doesn't really quite.
Yeah, his apartment feels like window dressing. It doesn't feel like it's part of him. Yeah. And as far as when he was finally having joy and he was enjoying his company with his boyfriend at the club, that that was a point where I'm like, okay, I can feel a little bit of something for Montrose, but when you look at the checks and balances of his character, there was already too much red in his ledger, for that one scene of joy to balance out all that red for me. Yeah. So
if that had put it before,
it's quite haphazard as well, because it looks like he's going to reconcile himself with Atticus in episode 4.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
and then he murders the person they found and brought back, and essentially, if he has, we saw him commit the murder, and if he has destroyed the pages as well, essentially, then what the character's doing is completely negating the events of episode 4, which might as well not have happened.
Right.
Exactly.
Which makes me think that maybe the pages, they're magical. Maybe they can't be destroyed. And maybe Montrose figured that out, so he's hidden them. Because he probably tried to destroy them, and dang it, didn't work. So he's probably just stuck them away somewhere. But
well, I said to Tom earlier before we started this, I felt this episode was very tasteless.
Tasteless was a good.
Everything else, the other 4 episodes, everything
episode.
was more tasteful. Like the sex scenes felt tasteful. The violence was tasteful. Like it wasn't overdone.
Even in episode 5, the scenes centering on Titus and Letitia, I thought were tasteful. When she's relaxing in the tub and he comes to see her, I mean, that was a tenderness that old married couples share, and so you can kind of see that in their future, But
surely, if they've set Montrose up to be a wantonly brutal character, which clearly they have, then it is within it fits in with the context of that character to have that brutality extending to his attitude to sex as well.
I think there's a really small percentage of the public who want to see brutality in sex between what we assume are consensual partners with each other.
I don't know if it's necessarily people wanting to see it, but I'm just saying that within the constraints of that character and the way they've decided to present and restructure that character for the TV program, it is at least it's within the feel of that character. I'm searching for another word, but my
I think I get you. It narratively makes sense, but that doesn't mean that I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think the whole point is I don't think you're really supposed to like him as a character.
I think we're supposed to believe that this was not their first encounter with each other, and if I can make that a leap and say, okay, as a viewing audience, we're only seeing their latest coupling. As a couple, they would have already developed a rhythm and a language between each other, to where they would have been born, because is it Sammy? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, Sammy.
Yeah. It just bothers me so much. It just seemed so unnecessarily aggressive.
What got to me was, I like horror, but I like horror that is intelligent and clever. The game that we play is because at moments I come to conclusions in my own mind that are horrible, and they're awesome, because of that. That's the kind of horror that I enjoy. I know that there are different kinds of horror. I don't care for jump scare horror. I think it's cheap. And we haven't really had that in this. But this time we went into the gross out horror. And that can be okay if it's shocking, but when it's repetitious, 3 times we see her dribbling with goo, it just gets nauseating. And then I felt that the gay sex scene was, you see him spit up this big, disgusting loogie, and then I'm like, is this gay sex as horror? Is that what they're trying to do here? Is it trying to make this look like this is supposed to be horror too? And I was like, yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, I think from that perspective, there's a kind of willful homophobia in the sort of the gross out quality there, isn't there?
Yeah,
which is a little uncomfortable. Which is, I mean, there are ways of, obviously, lots of people do enjoy having really rough sex, but there are more realistic ways to show that.
It can be rough after you start.
I've just made a confession,
but not boom the first second. That's like no. I think Sammy would have leapt up off there and said, "What the fuck do you think you're doing?"
Yeah, I mean, there are...
Give me 5 minutes or so to get used to it.
There are sort of physical and strategic considerations.
All right, I want to... Going back to the party.
Sorry, we've turned this into a discussion of the practicalities of gay sex. But
going back to the party. The police chief
in the 50s.
the police chief, he changes shirts. Did anybody get a good look at his chest?
Yeah.
Was he hairy?
Was he tattooed? What was that?
No.
His
head was stitched on.
Yeah, that was.
And his arms, right? His arms were stitched on, and his head was stitched on.
Yeah,
and he had a black torso.
That's what I thought. Is that the torso of a black person, and he has arms and head stitched on?
Yeah.
Or is he that doctor's experiment?
That's who would have done it, probably.
There's a
William or with the doctor?
No, there's a picture of the Mad Doctor and the police chief together. They established that there was a strong connection between those two earlier.
Yeah. Right.
So could it be that the sheriff was injured at some point and the doctor stitched his head onto a new body to keep him alive?
Ooh.
Frankenstein saw it.
Okay. Because for me, it went too fast. And I'm like,
it went really fast.
What
I thought it was a tattoo also.
Yeah, because it was the camera was at a distance, and so I'm like, is that all tattooing? But I thought I saw stitching. I'm like, what happened? What was that?
Actual black torso.
That's my biggest.
I mean, there's a similar thing going on with the neck of the guy in the closet.
Yeah, I saw the connection.
Is that blood staining or?
So he actually said something there. I believe the police chief said, or one of the other guys asked, did he tell us about the loot he hid? And the police chief said, oh no, but he will. And did he say the dead always do?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that in the closet was a reanimated corpse, is what they were implying.
Either that or they'll talk
well,
to him
Ruby kept acting as if it smelled really bad.
That would explain the fact that it was so gross for her. But that's
I thought she was just
interpretation,
grossed out and freaking out because this guy was cut up and bleeding and bound and everything in this closet,
I don't know.
Well, and
which is odd because you'd imagine, having recently sort of like shed her skin in a pile of sweaty blubber, you'd think that she'd have a stronger stomach.
Right. But if he's undead, then...
Yeah, if that was a game of Call of Cthulhu, she wouldn't have to make a sanity roll for that because, well, I've just been standing in a pool of my own stuff. Some guy being a little bit sick on me.
But it goes back to the whole goo. She emerges covered in goo. You mentioned the spitting into his hand and the sex scene. And then this guy in the closet is constantly spewing up blood. Like there's just like constant, just gushing stuff.
Yeah, that's gore.
It's as if whoever was doing this episode kept thinking, "Hey, let's make this the gore episode."
Right.
My biggest issue with this episode is actually I feel like whoever was in charge of the editing and the camera work was completely different to the other 4 episodes, because I liked the cinematography and that in the previous 4, but this just felt really jarring. Like, you didn't get to see a good look at certain things, and it felt like they had edited a wrong frame, and you'd got something you weren't meant to see, like a frame that they were going to cut out so you could get a closer look at something.
Yeah, I would have expected a more, hero shot of the captain like taking his shirt off so that we can get a really good look at the weirdness, But for me, it was so far away from where the camera was. He was way in the background, and I was like, "What was that?" So
I think
it's from Ruby's perspective, isn't it? We're seeing it from the perspective of the character, and the character.
But I didn't like it.
Still, you can, if you want to tell a story, it's the cinematography. You could suddenly cut away to one of the cop's perspectives when he's taking off his shirt, and then jump back to her going,
close up of her eye, like, oh my God, what am I seeing? And then you see that,
because they kind of did that early the other time when she sees the guy, almost rape the other black woman. But I agree, Josh. I think like this, we mentioned it a little bit in some of the previous episodes. The 5 episodes we've seen, I like the show, but it definitely feels like one of those Call of Cthulhu campaigns that I would run or that somebody would run, where you just sort of like, rather than getting a campaign, you just grab 5 scenarios and like kind of shove them in together and try to put them all in. And sometimes it's like, oh, we like this, and it's like, I didn't like last week, I wasn't a fan of that scenario, or it's like, so your group does like the Cracked and Crooked Mance one week, and they're like, I didn't like all that weird goose stuff. I wasn't. It wasn't about that, and then so it's just it can work, but it's sort of a double-edged sword where it feels all different each time you watch it.
If they'd have said that they were going for some sort of art thing where each episode would be done by a different director, we might accept that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they haven't. Episode 3 and 4 were done by the same director, I'm pretty sure. They were the same director.
Very different fields.
It's a shame because there was some of this that was really, really good and interesting in the first couple of episodes. And like you say, they could have made 3 seasons out of the book.
Yeah, I will say, still hang on. We still have a few more episodes left.
Yeah,
see where it goes.
I'm still
kind of obliged to at this point. But.
Yeah, I mean, like I wanted to quit because, like, usually, like if I get pissed off with a show like this that I'm binging, then I would say, all right, I'll stop, and then eventually come back to it. I can't do that right now because I'm reviewing it with you guys. But
yeah,
if it had it not been for the show, I would probably say I'll catch it when it's all done.
Josh is watching it twice, so
yeah, I've been watching it twice. So.
This is I feel sad for you for episode 5, man.
This is the only episode. I liked episode 1, 2, 3, and 4 because I've been watching it multiple times. Episode 5 is I've rated it. I didn't even write any notes. I rated like a 3. I wrote no notes for this episode. It's the only one.
It was terrible.
It seems like they're throwing too much at us because I really wanted to understand more about the Two-Spirit woman. And how that she had gotten put there by the guy and her people and all of this.
There's we have so many missed opportunities.
Yeah,
they're just
kind of steamrolling.
A quick thing is they are in talks of renewing it for a second season.
They aren't watching our show then.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to be like if they're going to have this person, like, the person who taught Titus Braithwaite the language of Adam and translated all these things and has all these things, and we're just going to kill them. Why have them in the first place? It's just kind of like, here's this thing you might be able to have, but I'm going to burn it. I'm just going to toss this nice toy into the fire.
They could have. They could have gone
They're trying-
2 seasons without anybody being able to understand what she was saying
Exactly.
as they're trying to
Exactly.
unravel her
It's
language.
like episode 2 should have been
Oh, yeah.
another episode. Episode 2 should have had another one. It's like
Wait a
this
second.
woman should have been in another episode. She should
Wait.
have at least had another one.
Could Atticus understand her when she talked?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why he can translate the scrolls,
Yeah.
because he's understanding what somehow magically or intrinsically.
Yeah. Well, or it has something to do with his birthright.
Yeah. Okay, I can give him that. They didn't make it clear though, but they.
I would give this episode a 2.
Yeah.
And there's only like there were like periods of like good parts to it. Well, the music brought it way down for me. Like some of the other things that you guys mentioned, like the first sex scene with Montrose and Sammy. Yeah, that disgusted me.
Well,
and it's not like a homophobic thing or whatever. Because at the end of the episode, when he's in the club, I found that endearing. I love that.
Right.
I love seeing that, and I love that particular moment, but I didn't like the previous moment.
I wanted
and there were like pockets of like this episode that it's like, all right, that was really cool, and then some other stuff happened, and I was just like, nah.
Agreed.
It did make me want to do a little bit of research, because I was surprised that there would be drag clubs in the 1950s.
Yeah, I don't know. But also, should we? I guess we all have to rate episode 4 first, and then rate episode 5.
Okay, 4 was about a 7 for me. I enjoyed
4
it.
was
Yeah.
a 7 for me.
I was 6.5, 7. 7.
And it left,
I would give it a 7.
left me wondering about Christina and William, which I liked the intrigue of thinking that for a while, but I didn't need to have it instantly revealed in the next episode that I was right.
The thing about the Christina reveal,
that could have like gone on for
quite a while.
At least another episode, because she says, "What's in the basement?"
I did like Ruby's reaction when she transformed.
Those of us who've read the book knows what's in the basement. So
yeah.
John, Mick, Morgan, ratings for 4?
7.
Ooh. I'd give it an 8, just because I really like the stuff with the vault.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's good.
You know, it had a real sort of pulpy RKO serial sort of feel to it that I quite enjoyed.
I did think I kept waiting for those alligators to do something.
Yeah, me too.
And then I kept thinking, wait a second, a doorway just opened, but there's no staircase? You got to go down a rope? Who designed this thing? This sucks.
somebody who designed like a D&D campaign.
All right, and then have episode 5. What do you think? I'd say 2 also. It's good.
I 3.
I'd give it a 5. I think I was a bit more pleasantly disposed to it.
Yeah, I'd say 3.
I honestly didn't find the gore, the body horror as distracting.
Oh,
as
I kind of
else.
liked the body horror.
Yeah, I'm going 4.
And I think, you know, we're exploring elements of the Montrose character. We're seeing that I can see what they're doing. There's a dimension of that character where you've got a man for whom aggression is his point of contact with other people.
Exactly.
You know, aggression and anger are how he connects with other people. So whether that be sexually or in his relationship with his son, and his drinking, no doubt, being a component of that, and reconciling that with himself. I'd just like to see a bit more of the character that relates to his environment. You know, we've got this man who reads Dumas, and he listens to light operetta it's not mentioned in the TV series, but in the book, that stereo, he built that, and so he's obviously a man of intellect, but that's not coming across in the character in the.
They're two separate characters.
All, it's really
Yeah, they're portraying him as a bum, kind of like a bum in the show. Somebody that everybody pretty much doesn't like. And in the book, you're right, he comes across more like on the intellectual level. Going after this manuscript and everything like that had a purpose. It wasn't just like, I'm going to just do it. Yeah, it's lazy writing, but that's why it's a 7 for me. Episode number 4.
I mean, in the book, you've got the character is an autodidact. He's a self-educated man. He's a self-educated black man in the 1950s. I mean, how is that not worthy of keeping that?
I know, yeah.
In the TV series as the character, that's the capacity for developing that character is enormous. Just by all means, yes, keep the rest of it with him having issues with aggression and anger and drinking, but bring that in as well.
Right.
Otherwise, as you say, he's just this bum that everyone hates, who just happens to have this massive record collection and all of these books.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that you could never imagine him reading them.
Yeah.
Right. The way they portrayed him in the thing, it's quite frustrating that they've done it in that piecemeal fashion. I think it's a bit jarring.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to mention, you guys keep on bringing up the aggression side, and I think with Montrose, psychologically speaking, that was the way he received love from his father. And so that's the way he's expressing love to others. Not saying that it's right, but that is probably his psychosis right now.
Yeah.
I would love to have seen a flashback with a young Montrose interfacing with his dad and getting those lessons, and then how that would have impacted his psyche. That would have helped bring, I think, more sympathy to the character as we see him, into the adult that he developed into.
Sure.
And the types of choices that he makes. I love the idea of where if they had his reveal as a struggling closeted gay man before he had murdered the Indian woman, that would have brought a whole different dynamic to it. Because now maybe there are certain demons that he's struggling with, and he had to make certain choices, and people don't always make the right choices, and maybe he was struggling with certain demons, and he decided, to do this, for his perspective, the greater good, I have to murder this woman. Well, then it becomes a struggle, and then that becomes something thought-provoking for the audience. But I didn't see a struggle like that. All I saw was he was like, I'm just gonna up and kill you.
If he'd have reacted with a level of terror at the idea that anyone, including Atticus, was getting involved in magic, then I could have accepted it all, because he would have been doing this because, Jesus Christ, you don't know what you're getting involved in.
I think ultimately it's that the character needs a little bit more depth. He's coming across as being two-dimensional, and that's not really being challenged. That's being cemented more with each other. Maybe with episode 5, we're starting to see some sort of depth to the character. We're seeing another side to him.
What do we have left? 3 episodes?
1.
5. We have 5 more.
Is it 10?
It's
10. Okay.
Okay.
So we're only halfway.
To put out there, this is not a defense for him killing the hermaphrodite or but it's one thing if I go into a room, there's a person I know, a human being living, and I kill the person. That's homicidal. But if you go into a room and you see a corpse, and it reanimates, and it looks like a frickin' zombie, a mummy, and go to the movie The Mummy, where it finally gets into human form. In your mind, you're going to see this as some kind of horrific monster that's just temporarily in human form. So killing it, granted, again, I'm not giving him an easy out, but if you saw that and you saw this as, some sort of obstacle or some sort of, dangerous temptation for your son to go down a horrible path, you could see maybe killing it. Because it would be it, not a human, not a person, not this nice sweet girl, but it's a freaking zombie mummy.
At the same time, you've got another element to it where because Atticus was the only person who could actually understand what that character was saying, he's the only one who would have really got the nuance of it. So perhaps you could argue that he's the only one who's really got an emotional connection there, that he's heard the story that they told, which was frankly horrifying. This idea of someone's like tribe being brought there and locked up with them to die.
Right.
And it really demonstrates, what a horrifying individual Titus was. Not just because he was
not Titus. Montrose.
No. We're talking about the grandfather.
Oh, the grandfather.
The one who was the grand wizard, whatever.
Who built the vault.
Right. Titus.
Not just ransacking the world for its treasures, but ransacking the people themselves as though they're just artifacts, right, and just chucking them in there with her to die.
Something that was kind of brought up, or it was brought up in the book and a little bit in the very beginning of the series, is that Montrose has been researching Atticus's mom's history we're supposed to get the sense, I think we're supposed to get the sense, for years. And I think it was that research into that family line of hers that finally brought Montrose into, or got him recognized by the Braithwaites. What happened? Maybe Montrose has had years of close calls with magical stuff and has a reason to vehemently hate magic and want to protect Atticus from it. But because we haven't been shown any of that, that ledger's still full of red to me.
What we did get was that Montrose was picked up by William Christina and taken back to the mansion and then sealed up in a wall somewhere. So yeah, he's been traumatized by the Braithwaites. We don't know if they tortured him or...
Yeah.
Anyways.
Crazy. Well, and I wanted to also say that I agree with Morgan, what he said in a couple episodes ago about how there's no subtlety in all this. Oh, this house is haunted. Look at all these ghosts. I mean, HBO is not doing anything subtle with this. Everything is hit with a hammer. Right. And man, I think we could deal with some subtlety.
And that is why, with giving ratings, I know people are giving ratings. That's for me, that's been my problem with the entire show, because I don't know, constantly the constant being things thrown at you, thrown at the audience, just like, I don't enjoy it. I don't typically watch TV myself, and so having this TV show, it's just kind of, I'm like, I just feel like getting dragged along.
Isn't Montrose motivation with regard to all this, isn't that really that same subtlety that you're saying isn't there? I mean,
I don't know.
You know, there seems to be at one and the same time there's a complaint that there's no subtlety there, and at the same time that there is this character whose motivations are very much unclear, and that seems to be perceived as a negative as well.
It might be
we're only halfway through. It's not unusual
true.
to. I mean, you know, I know it's a bit of a cliched trope in modern TV programs, but it's not unusual to have an episode later on that's largely a flashback that you know
makes us change our minds.
Suddenly reveals what this character's
no, that's
motivations
true. That's
are
true.
and flips everything round.
Also, we should bear in mind this is a discussion. It's not really a review or a rating system. We sort of play around with the whole rating thing, but I have no criteria to rate anything here. I just whether I like it or not. So, and I think that's really what we're. You could be right. We could get to the end of this whole thing, and there could be a revelation episodes, a few of them, where we go, "Oh, that was fucking brilliant! Why didn't we see that coming?" And the fact that we went way down here makes this all the more pleasant. We'll see.
I'm prepared to absolutely disagree where necessary. I am, after all, the only person I know who liked Penny Dreadful City of Angels. I really enjoyed that. And no one else did, apparently. So.
I haven't watched it yet, so.
Are we? Was there a movie based on the TV series, or?
No, there's a new sort of spin-off series.
Oh,
set in the 30s in Los Angeles.
I sort of liked the Penny Dreadful series. It was okay.
Well, the City of Angels is nothing like the original one at all. It's very much a standalone.
All right. So, do we have any final words, Josh?
Yes, of course I do. I have to get in. Of course I do. I've actually got two things, just two minor. One that addresses something because it's out there. Anyone can find it if they go on the Wikipedia, but I'll get to that in a second. The first thing is, this is the first episode where I felt HBO really, really, really got involved.
HBO'd it, yeah.
Like, because they had more sex scenes. There was a bit of nudity. There was more violence. They were trying to up everything. Everything felt over the top. I feel like HBO got too involved.
Well, I'd say that there was one sex scene that was very reminiscent of Oz. That's for sure. that was very HBO.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, you've got to look at what it is, and we're dealing with it's made for a modern audience, and there are cultural mores that come with that, aren't there? And ways of making things stylistically at this time, which is going to, not going to be to everyone's taste. But overall, I've been enjoying it. I've been thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah.
I feel like if they're gonna keep on continuing with this, they should lean more into the True Detective and less into like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I agree.
They could just leave Jordan Peele and the rest of the creative team to do what they want.
That too.
Because it'd probably be a lot better if they just left them to it.
Yeah.
And what was is that your second point?
No, my second one is this is an episode title for later on. So, and it might spoil some, but it also might answer a question. So, it's called Rewind 1921. So, I'm assuming it's probably a flashback episode.
I mean, in the book, there's a flashback to the Tulsa.
Wall Street. Yeah.
Yeah. So
the Tulsa Wall Street Massacre.
I think you'll get if they're gonna add more flashbacks, then that's probably where they'll do it. On top of book stuff.
All right, folks.
Yeah, that's everything.
Anybody else? Or shall we wrap it up there? All right. Let's see. For those of you who don't know who we are Into the Darkness. We consist of a large group of friends from around the world that play a game called Call of Cthulhu RPG. We play Tuesdays through Friday, a couple of hours a night, and we post these videos on YouTube. We also have a Discord server where you can chat with us directly. I'll have a link in the description below. We provide audio-only versions of our shows free for you to download from Podbean or iTunes. The costs involved with the show are provided almost entirely by our patrons. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. If you'd like to help support our show, please visit our Patreon account. Just $1 a month helps us a lot. You can find a link in the description below. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and punch the bell icon for updates on our latest shows. And leave us some comments. We enjoy reading them and answering any questions you might have. This is Tom Rayleigh, together with all the members of our gaming club, inviting you to journey with us once again into the darkness for another adventure in the universe of H.P. Lovecraft and the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Until next time, good luck and good gaming.